So in this video, we just want to talk a little bit about vuetify. It's one of the front-end UI component libraries that works with Vue. You're going to see this on every framework. It's usually a one framework has many possible UI partners, and so vuetify is one of them. They do focus on material design type of controls, so that they should look okay on a mobile device. The key is where to start. And so for me, it's like, well, do you really want your app to look like this, right? That sort of thing. So you can talk about styles and animations and that. But when you get into the pre-built component stuff, you don't have to build, but you still have to learn how to use them in this particular language. And then what they call stuff. That's always a fun thing. Especially I've done work on the Android side, and the names over there, I mean, it's just a hoot sometimes, what they call something. But standard things like alerts. We'll see how my laptop is behaving today. And that they usually have sort of like a demo, and then there's things you can change about borders and that. Or elevation. Elevation is usually a good one because can't quite see it a little bit there. It's hard with the green, but this is something on Android is like how high you raise a button or how it looks raised. Can we get into the importance of the button? There's a whole material design document, and so then you understand where some of this comes from in that. And then again, they have like built-in types and that you can easily just switch, like what would a warning by default. But again, all these colors are something that you can sort of, if you don't quite like them, you can change the colors and styles and that. The thing that, but then again, it's like, what are things called? We all have seen avatars, like the little circle with either your initials or your photo, depending what's around in that. Badges and banners. The one thing that you're looking for probably, if you want to like make a web mobile friendly app, right? So this is like web technology, but designed to look good on mobile, is this bars area. And so the app bar would be the classic, I guess, top bar, right? Little menu icon, but they have all the built-in, and you can see this even on Android when you tap a button, you get that feedback that you tapped it because it does the little halo or like change a color, so you know you actually hit the button in that. So that's pretty standard. Just lots of these examples when you scroll down, whether you want it to be collapsing, like it'll shrink in to take the minimum amount of space. But this is pretty standard, right? You have your menu, you have a title for your app, and you may even have a couple buttons over here like search and overflow. I think there might be an example further down in that. Yeah, this is a classic. It's wide right now because we are on a desktop. We have more screen real estate. It's responsive. It'll stretch out. This is pretty classic where you have a menu on the top, and that usually brings out a sliding drawer. And then the question is, what did they call it here? And that sort of thing. Is it called a side tab, side nav? Who knows? We'll get there. But basically, you usually have the menu icon, the title of the app. There's usually some text up top, and this is usually, rolled over because it's your phone. And there's a couple buttons, like search is usually up there, but this is using an overflow menu where you might have more menu choices, but you don't want to show them all at the top and that sort of thing. And some apps kind of learn which ones are your favorite, and over time it'll substitute which ones are actually at the top in that. So the question you should probably answer is hey, this is the stuff I want to use. This is what I want my app to look like, right? Because in the end, my rule from other courses is, one, it's got to work. That's the most important thing. The next thing is right after that, it's got to look good, right? And then we get into speed for me on the third one. So it's got to work. And then usually, yeah, because, it's an app you're using or other users are using, it can't look like a dog's breakfast. And so these definitely give you a head start and a common look and feel that you see on a lot of mobile apps in that. And so then you can just get going out of the gate. But then, it's going to take some time to get comfortable, familiar with the framework in that. But I tell you, it sure beats writing your own cascading style sheets sometimes in that, or work, a lot of this is done in a really nice clean way too, so it's not too noisy in your code in that. They have other toolbars, because maybe you are building a desktop app in the end in that. You're not going to see much on this one. It's the same menu. Further down, there might be some stuff. The system bars are interesting. This like, this would be tough to, I guess, swap out, but on most like Android devices up at the top, they kind of tell you like real time what your bars are on your cell phone, how many bars you got on Wi-Fi, what your battery is at, and that sort of thing. So that's what we're sort of looking at here in that. And I don't know about height. Yeah, how much real estate do you want to shrink that down into in that? And so it's nice that you have some of these settings that you can quickly adjust so that it looks nice on a particular phone in that. Bottom navigation bars are something that show up on Android apps. So besides your top bar, right, you have like a bottom bar as well, and that usually has some buttons on it too. Not too many, 1 to 3 is nice in that. And then you can figure out if you want them centered like this, left or right, that kind of stuff. So they have lots of stuff to pick from, and that's so then again, shouldn't brush it off. You would want to budget some time to sit down and take a look at some of these controls to say, okay, we could really use this in the app, and this is the kind of thing our end users are looking for. The classic floating action button, still kicking around in Android, but it's the one that's floating. It usually floats, they got it down here, right? It usually floats down in the lower left corner of your app. It's the concept of a floating action button is, what is the main action of this app? So for email, it's usually, make a new email, compose, or for Google Docs on your phone, it's, hey, make a new spreadsheet, make a new document. So it's like a little circle with a plus on it or something. That is very sensitive to fads and what's going on design-wise at the time, what those buttons look like. If you have a bunch of data that has like eye candy, like good photos, then cards are a nice way to display it, right? You usually have a title. You can have some buttons that actually perform an action, but usually these cards have a really nice picture in them. Like, so if it's like recipes, or if it's even bookmarks, I've seen this on the ESRI side. So you have the name for the bookmark, but then the bookmark has a nice image, like a thumbnail of what the map kind of looked like at the time you took the bookmark, and that sort of thing. And again, elevation, you'll see it here because of the color. You can really see how it, by adjusting the shading, it looks more raised. And like I said, to really understand why is this set up this way, you'd have to go dig into the Android material design documents, and the more important a button is, or like serious, you really need to address this button sort of stuff, they raise it up higher or make it look like it's raised higher in that. But then you may want to design where, no, I want my stuff pretty, they call it flat, so everything's pretty flat. There's that's really flat. That'd be really hard to tell that was actually a raised card. Sometimes you want a little bit, but then that's we're getting down to the nitty gritty of personal choice in that. Carousels is usually if you have like a deck of things you want to swipe through. This hasn't quite updated. There we go. In that. So a slide would be a good example, but you could use a carousel. You could use cards to do like a bunch of recipes, or you could use a carousel. It's where you have a bunch of preloaded content, but in this case you look at one at a time. And something like cards or something, you'll have like what we call a grid view, and it'll be 2 or 3 columns wide, and like 2 or 3 cards wide, depending if you're in landscape or portrait. And so you can see multiple items at a time, news feeds, or like news articles or recipes, something like that. Here it's like one at a time, you just swipe through it in that. But again, you need to spend some time to say, okay, what are these things and that. One of the strangest things, and it has such a strange name, it's got it because on the Android side it has a very similar name, sparklines. Would never guess sparklines would actually be like graphing, but it is. We'll give it a second here to switch. But built into it, so they have a little bit of charting, not too much, because remember, their focus is web mobile. And so, you know, what are people doing on web mobile? And that's, I have a Fitbit, so you definitely get into like your heart, looking at your heart rate uh, when you're walking or out on a run or biking and stuff like that. And so for that type of thing, a little trend line, and they get into like fiddling it and that, and they say there is a bar option. Uh, I've seen even that on Fitbit where you're sleep maybe in that where they use a bar chart, but it's not as sophisticated as chart or D3 in terms of its visualizations. But if you have a very simple chart you want to show, they have that as well. The thing is, because these are all like extensions of existing, like extensions of HTML elements, so they're not going to use names like div, right? So you get some really, like I said, interesting name. Oh, navigation drawer. So it's called a navigation drawer here. Probably that matches Android pretty well. Sidebar's not an Android term, but navigation drawer is, right? But again, they're following material design guidelines here and that. And so it is a slide out thing, which people are kind of used to. We'll see if this one is it activated? Yeah. So the whole thing where you do have a menu, you have other content over on the left, and you need it to pop out in that. Now, our swipes built in, that's something to test. You would have to test and that sort of thing. But the thing is, you have to go through one of these and see, hey, that's exactly what I want for my app. That's like, or this is the kind of stuff I want my app to have. And then it would be like, okay, we're going to go with, vuetify on top of view and that sort of thing. But I would say, go to a couple of different of these front end UI libraries and see what they have in that. Can't go through everything here, but they have a lot of stuff in that. They have a lot of nice stuff like for cards, like the fact that they're loading. There's like a little blue bar flashing, so you know that it's all the data hasn't arrived and things like that. They have a lot of nice stuff built in that. But we'll leave it there, and we'll go on to the next demo.